mathematicians, it's Miss Johnson. I hope everybody's having a good day today. Today what we're going to learn about is numbers and how to classify them. So we classify things all the time, or we put them in categories. So, like, just think about school. We have elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and then in middle school we have 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, and then we can classify even more by saying we have band members, we have choir members, we have robotics members, right? So we classify things all the time. So we're just going to take all the numbers that you know and we're going to put them in categories. We're going to classify them. So you first learned, when you first started learning about numbers, you learned counting numbers. They're also called natural numbers because it's naturally where you start. All right, remember people would say, ready, 1, 2, 3, go, right? When you start, that's how you start learning to count. So those are called natural numbers or counting numbers. And then when you got into school, you learned about the number 0. When you got into about, I don't know, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, you started learning about these. Yeah, that's right. Fractions and decimals. That's right. And then in 6th grade, you started learning about numbers that were less than 0. I know you haven't learned too much about those yet, but don't worry, you will. Especially if you're in 6th grade, you're going to learn a lot about them. And then there's also negative fractions and negative decimals. So we're going to classify these numbers. Oh, you also learned about improper fractions. Forgot about that. Right? And you also learned about mixed numbers, right? Okay. All of these numbers can be classified or put into categories. Okay, the smallest category are the natural numbers. The smallest category is the natural numbers. Okay, those are only the counting numbers. So, all of these numbers are counting numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 115, 534, 858,000, 1 million, a billion, right? All of those numbers are natural numbers. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to put this into this little container right here. It's our smallest category. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Miss Johnson, those are natural numbers? I thought that those were whole numbers. Well, guess what? You're right. They are whole numbers. But our whole numbers add one number to natural numbers. You know what number that is? Yeah, it's 0. So whole numbers add one number and that to our natural numbers, and that is 0. So all the natural numbers are whole numbers. That's why it can sit inside that container. And then the whole number, the one whole number that's different is 0. Okay, so we add 0 to that. All right, and then our next category is going to add these numbers. Yeah, our negative whole numbers, right? So 1, the opposite of 1 is -1. 2 is a whole number. The opposite of 2 is -2. So all the negative whole numbers, those are called integers. Now, whole numbers are integers. 0 is an integer. And the negative numbers are integers. But the negative numbers are the only ones that go in this separate container that's just integers, because all these other numbers are also classified as natural numbers and whole numbers. So our positives are also natural numbers. And then when we add 0, that is also a whole number. Okay? So our integers are our negative whole numbers, and natural numbers. Now our biggest category, huge category of numbers, so many numbers you can't even count them, is when we add our fractions and our decimals. Okay? Any fraction, or, well, not any, I'm going to give you a trick that they try to play on you in a minute. So our mixed numbers, our negative fractions, our decimals, our negative decimals, all of those are considered rational numbers. And that is our biggest category, rational numbers. Now, these are not integers. Just because it has a negative doesn't make it an integer. These are not whole numbers. They're not natural numbers. but they are rational numbers. Okay, that's why they go into the category of just rational numbers. They're not in, they don't go in any of the other categories. They're just rational numbers. But all of these that we talked about earlier, integers, whole numbers, and natural numbers, all of those numbers are also rational numbers. Okay? So every number that you know right now, except for maybe one, if you know a number that has to do with circles, all of the numbers you know right now are rational numbers. Okay? So just remember that. Every single number you know is a rational number. Okay? But some of those numbers can be classified more specifically. Like, you're in middle school. You could say, what grade are you in? Oh, I'm in middle school. But if you wanted to be more specific, you would say, I'm in 6th grade or I am 7th grade. That's the same thing with the numbers. Okay, you could say, oh yeah, 0 is a rational number. Yes, 0 is an integer, but its most specific name is that it is a whole number. Okay? Now, let's see what that looks like drawn on a piece of paper. Because nobody's going to put big old containers in front of you, right? Right? We can't do it that way. All right, so our biggest category are rational numbers. Every number that you know right now, except for maybe one that's related to circles, is a rational number. Then inside your rational numbers, a smaller circle, because it doesn't contain as many numbers, right? And those are our integers. And then inside our integers is our whole numbers. And then every whole number is also a natural number. So this is a Venn diagram, and those circles are nested inside of each other. Okay, so all of our natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to put dots behind it because we know that's going to keep going forever. All of our natural numbers are whole numbers. They are also integers, and they are also rational numbers. All of our whole numbers, which the only number that goes in there is 0, that just in the whole number spot is 0, and then all of these in here are whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of our whole numbers are also integers. All of our natural numbers are also integers. In our integer circle, the negative whole numbers would go there, right? And then our rational number circle would be our fractions, our decimals, positive or negative fractions and decimals, now, what are some things to watch out for? What are some things to watch out for when you're doing this? Let me give you one to watch out for. See that one? Negative 6.0. Some kids would say, oh, that's a rational number because it has a decimal. But is it? What is negative 6.0 equal to? Well, it's equal to negative 6. Which is an integer. So that would have to go in the integers section. What about this one? 15/3. Many students, fraction, it's a rational number. But what does 15/3 simplify to? 15 divided by 3 is 5. So this is a natural number. It's a counting number. So it would go here in that circle. So you have to be careful. If you can simplify the fraction or the decimal further, then you need to simplify it. Okay, let's look at this one. Think about this one for a second. Where would that one go? Negative 20/2. What does that simplify to? Yeah, negative 10. So where would it go? It would go in the integers. It's a negative whole number. And then last, what about 13.0? Yeah, it's a natural number. It would go here in the natural number because that 0 would go away. Would not go in just the rational numbers. So that's how you take the numbers all the numbers that you know about so far in your life and how you put them into categories. Rational numbers is every single number that you know. Fractions, decimals, positives, negatives, whole numbers. Integers are our negative whole numbers, our whole numbers and our natural numbers. Our whole numbers are all 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then our natural numbers, our counting numbers, are 1. Start at 1 and keep going forever.